by God to go there. A few months later, I got up the courage to walk down the street and to knock on the door of Taqwa Mosque. Now, nobody knocks on the door of a mosque. Normally, they just open the door and they walk right in. But I was not sure how I'd be received, so I stood there knocking until someone came to the door. That person simply said, "May I help you?" I said, "My name is Samuel. I'm a Christian from the United States. Is it okay if I come inside?" "Hi, my name is Earle Shropshire. I'm an American citizen living in Saudi Arabia. I came here in November 2011, not knowing anything about Islam or the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him."
Samuel adalah seorang pastor asal Amerika Serikat yang baru beberapa hari bekerja di Arab sebagai penerjemah Al-Quran ke dalam bahasa Inggris. Awalnya, Samuel menganggap bahwa Islam adalah agama yang buruk. Karena begitulah media barat memberitakan tentang Islam. Yang mereka tampilkan adalah tentang kekerasan, pembakaran, serta pembantaian yang bahkan dibuat seolah-olah dilakukan oleh sesama muslim itu sendiri.
Most of what I had heard was extremely negative. In America, our news channels boosted their own air ratings by regularly sensationalizing breaking news of terrorism. Every 30 minutes, one witnessed horrific scenes of bombings and bloodshed and murder, often one Muslim group fighting against another Muslim group. As killings and beheadings took place, there were always the shouts of Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, God is great. I was invited here to Saudi Arabia by Safi Kaskas to work on what was known as the Q Project. Dr. Kaskas wanted to produce a new, easy-to-read American translation for the next generation of young Americans. Since I could not read or speak Arabic, I wasn't doing any translation work. I was simply invited here to check the English to make certain that this new interpretation of the Quran was easily understood. My work, of course, required that I read the Quran over and over again. Well, as you can imagine, having no knowledge of Islam, I had hundreds and hundreds of questions. I was shocked as I read to find that Jesus, peace be upon him, was often mentioned in the Quran. Jesus was presented as one of the greatest prophets. And even the story of the virgin birth was mentioned there. Many of the miracles that Jesus had done, I found them in the Quran. There were even a couple of Jesus miracles mentioned in the Quran that were not mentioned in the Bible.
Karena dia bekerja sebagai penerjemah Al-Quran, terketuklah hatinya bahwa apa yang dibacanya berulang kali banyak sekali menceritakan sejarah dan mukjizat Yesus atau Nabi Isa alaihissalam. Hal itulah yang membuatnya takjub pada Al-Quran.
Evenings were mostly spent alone in a bedroom that had been set up for me in Dr. Safi's office. At night, I would stand on the balcony of that building and I would look across a very busy boulevard to a mosque. And I would hear the calls to prayer. I would see men and women coming to the mosque and leaving the mosque. Children were playing football in the mosque parking lot. Except for the minaret, it appeared to me to look like a typical Christian church in America. My heart longed to be in that mosque. I felt compelled by God to go there. A few months later, I got up the courage to walk down the street and to knock on the door of Taqwa Mosque. Now, nobody knocks on the door of a mosque. Normally, they just open the door and they walk right in. But I was not sure how I'd be received, so I stood there knocking until someone came to the door. That person simply said, "May I help you?" I said, "My name is Samuel. I'm a Christian from the United States. Is it okay if I come inside?" And that man, Shafiq Zubir, who was the caller to prayer, he reached out and he hugged me and he said, "Of course, come in." I sat in the back of the mosque during prayer times for 3 days. I didn't understand what was going on. I saw men standing, bowing, putting their heads to the floor as the imam led them in prayer. I had little knowledge about what was happening, but I felt God's presence in that mosque. And the men of Taqwa Mosque were so friendly to me.
Setelah mengamati umat Islam yang melakukan sholat selama 3 hari dan pelajari arti bacaan sholat yang imam kumandangkan ketika sholat, Samuel pun memutuskan menjadi mualaf dengan bersyahadat di Islam Education Foundation.
After 3 days, I asked Shafiq if he could teach me the first surah of the Quran, Al-Fatiha. This was a necessary element in praying the 5 daily prayers. I was memorizing sounds, but I didn't know what the sounds meant. So I started comparing them with an English translation I had, and I realized that there was nothing in Al-Fatiha that was inconsistent with Christian teaching. There I read the encouraging words that God was the most merciful, the distributor of mercy and forgiveness. My heart was being strangely touched by the words of the Quran and the love displayed by the men of Taqwa Mosque. Dr. Sadiq Malki would later drive me to the Islamic Education Foundation in Al-Hamra neighborhood of Jeddah, where I said Al-Shahada. According to Islam, we're all equal. There's none above another. There are scholars, but their role is educational. As for the relationship with God, it's personal, it's direct. People often ask me, Sam, how did you become a Muslim? In the church was a library, and in that library were children's books. One of the books my mother got over and over again was called The God of Abraham. In that book were beautiful color photos of camels and deserts. She would read me the story of Abraham, how he was commanded by God to leave his mother and father because they were worshiping idols. She would pause and she would say, Sammy, you always have to pray to the God of Abraham. There is only one true God, the God of Abraham. My commitment to God has been strong and enduring since my younger years. And now I have found absolute peace in Islam, in a faith that I once thought was hostile. I found friendship and hope amongst a fraternity of other Muslim brothers and sisters. I have found a family of believers.
Samuel mengatakan bahwa sebelum menjadi Muslim, sempat ada keinginannya untuk mencalonkan diri menjadi wali kota. Namun ternyata Allah memberikannya takdir lain. Setelah menjadi seorang Muslim, ia langsung menunaikan ibadah haji. Baginya, ibadah haji ini adalah suatu berkah yang luar biasa dalam hidupnya. Layaknya ibadah pembersih diri. Baginya, haji seperti pengampunan atas semua dosa yang pernah ia lakukan seumur hidupnya.